The Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, or Rcra, is the primary national legislation addressing solid waste management. As with other environmental statutes, Rcra is an exercise of congressional plenary power to develop national standards for the handling of solid waste. Unlike other environmental statutes, Rcra does not have a tribes as state provision. Nonetheless, Rcra guides solid waste management in Indian country. For more information on how Rcra differs from other environmental statutes with regards to tribes as states status, see BAD versus EPA. The Resource Conservation and Recovery Act's goals, as spelled out by Congress, include the intent to protect human health and the environment posed by waste disposal, to conserve energy and natural resources through waste recycling and recovery, to reduce or eliminate as expeditiously as possible the amount of waste generated. This includes hazardous waste, as well as looking to reduction techniques. And finally, to ensure that wastes are managed in a manner that is protective of human health and the environment. Rcra focuses on hazardous waste disposal and monitoring. It also addresses odors, vectors, and other factors of disposal. The principal objective of Rcra's hazardous waste regulation is the protection of human health and the environment. Rcra regulation is also intended to encourage the conservation and recovery of valuable materials. The definition of solid waste under Rcra, which serves as the starting point for hazardous waste management systems, reflects EPA's efforts to obtain the proper balance between these two underlying objectives. According to Rcra regulations, a material must be defined as a solid waste before it can be considered a hazardous waste. The regulatory definition of solid wastes includes materials that are abandoned, that are recycled, that are inherently waste-like, as well as waste military munitions. The Act defines solid waste more specifically as any garbage, refuse, sludge from a wastewater treatment plant, water supply treatment plant, or air pollution control facility, and other discarded material including solid, liquid, semi-solid, or contained gaseous material resulting from industrial, commercial, mining, and agricultural operations, as well as from community activities. That can be found under Rcra Section 1004, paragraph 27. Hazardous wastes are solid wastes that are specifically defined through lists developed by the Environmental Protection Agency, which identify hazardous wastes containing specific characteristics, which are: ignitability includes materials that have a flash point less than 60 degrees Celsius or 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Examples include waste oils and used solvents. Corrosivity includes wastes that are acids or bases commonly found in batteries. They are capable of corroding metal containers, such as storage tanks, drums, and barrels. Battery acid is an example of a corrosive. These are often stored in metal containers and if stored improperly can corrode those containers and eventually leak into the environment. Reactivity includes wastes that are unstable under normal conditions. They can cause explosions, toxic fumes, gases, or vapors when heated, compressed, or mixed with water. Examples include lithium-sulfur batteries and explosives. They are hazardous because they are unstable. Toxicity is a characteristic of hazardous wastes that's very broadly defined. Toxic wastes are harmful or fatal when ingested or absorbed in certain amounts. For example, mercury, lead, etc. Toxic waste disposed on land or in contaminated liquid may leach from the waste and pollute groundwater, causing significant human health risks. Generally speaking, if you're trying to characterize a waste or define it, if they have any of these characteristics, ignitability, corrosivity, reactivity, or toxicity, they are likely listed as a hazardous waste by EPA, or they should be handled as hazardous pursuant to Rcra. Materials that do not fall within the hazardous waste definitions, either for lacking a characteristic not defined on the EPA lists or otherwise excluded, are not subject to Subtitle C regulation under Rcra. These wastes, along with municipal solid wastes, would otherwise be regulated by Subtitle D of Rcra. Subtitle D is where the regulations pertaining to municipal solid wastes can be found. Municipal solid wastes are defined as durable goods, non-durable goods, containers and packaging, food wastes, yard trimmings, as well as miscellaneous organic wastes from residential, commercial, and industrial non-processed sources. In addition to developing definitions, Rcra defines disposal facilities. This includes very specific standards on appropriate landfills and what wastes can be deposited in which landfills. Rcra also has definitions pertaining to household hazardous wastes, as they pertain to landfills. Household hazardous wastes are an important definition of wastes to understand for tribal solid waste managers. Household hazardous wastes, or HHW, are leftover household products that contain corrosive, toxic, ignitable, or reactive ingredients. In essence, these are hazardous wastes based on their characteristics, but since they originate from residential locations, they can legally be dumped in municipal solid waste landfills. The only thing that allows household hazardous waste to be excluded from Rcra hazardous waste provisions are they are solely from residential properties. If residential waste pickup is commingled with commercial or industrial, tribal, governmental, or business waste, those household hazardous wastes must be treated as hazardous wastes and no longer fall under the household hazardous waste exclusion. Since many municipal dumps are not allowing disposal of household hazardous wastes, alternative collection options should be considered for household hazardous wastes.